So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we have an agenda. All right, let's move on to item 3, approval of the meeting minutes from the August 22nd amended version. And then we will have a separate motion for the September 26th meeting minutes draft as drafted. On the August 22nd with the amendments, for the amended version.
I will make a motion to have the August 22nd minutes approved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes as they read?
Yeah, I did approve the, or I did review the corrections and what they're supposed to be now.
Thank you. All right. No further discussion?
Are we talking about the second set?
No, August 22nd.
First.
Okay.
So first set. So with that being said, we have a motion on the floor. Discussion is through. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? August 22nd meeting minutes are approved as amended. Moving on, September 26, 2023.
I have a correction. On line 304, it was talking about the food, the taco truck. It says that Polar Parts allowed them, something to that effect, in their parking lot. It should be You Pull Our Parts instead of Polar Parts.
Gotcha. Easy enough.
I have something on line 234. It says the developer's desire for that particular price, and that price should be changed to configuration.
Okay. Thank you. Any other changes?
I'll make a motion to,
Oh. Is that better, Bob?
Yeah, sorry.
make a motion to approve the amended minutes for September, whatever date that was.
26. September 26th.
September 26th.
I'll second.
You have a motion and a second on the corrected minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Those minutes also approved for September 26th meeting. And with that, we will move on to item 4, Aaron, regarding the Planning Commission reappointment recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission. What you have before you is the consideration for a recommendation for a reappointment of Commissioner Terry to the Planning Commission. There are 3 positions on the Planning Commission that will expire during this term, end of January. I have indicated to those 3 members that their terms are expiring and asked them if they had an interest in being reappointed and to submit a letter or an email of interest for reappointment. Commissioner Terry was the first to get me an email. Glenn Terry has served on the East Bethel Planning Commission on multiple occasions. His most recent tenure started in October of 2008, and his current appointment expires, as I said, January 30th of 2023. Commissioner Terry has submitted a letter/email of interest seeking to serve another term, which would expire January 31st of 2027. Planning Commission is requested to consider the approval of a recommendation to the City Council to reappoint Glenn Terry to the Planning Commission for an additional term beginning February 1st of 2024.
Great. Let's see. If somebody has a phone that's close to the mic, maybe try moving it. There's a little bit of feedback going. Thank you, Aaron. I think that took care of it. Okay. I guess I, for one, would be in favor of Mr. Terry's reappointment. I would motion to make said recommendation to City Council for his reappointment.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion for Mr. Terry?
I was thrilled that Glenn decided that he'd like to put his name in again this time. I think the strength of our commission together is that we have so many different viewpoints. Glenn's is certainly different from mine in many things, and yet we are able to talk things out. And also Glenn, I believe, has the most tenure on here also, does he not?
Yes, he does currently have the most time.
The kind of the institutional knowledge that Glenn has is amazing, that he can call up things that that this commission has discussed 20 years ago and provide context that we might not know.
Well, and having served with you, Glenn, for, again, the better part of 13 years or so now, again, you said it very eloquently. Again, you and I have differed on a number of different topics and a number of different things, but we've always still had great respect for one another and each other's opinions, been open-minded to both. So, no, you've always been a great member to have up here, whether we agreed on a topic or not. So for that, I thank you in itself, and I appreciate your willingness to continue to commitment to the position.
Thank you.
Always good to have history here.
Absolutely.
Ancient history, yes.
I wouldn't use the A word. So with that, I would call for the vote. All in favor of recommendation for the recommendation to the City Council, say aye.
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 Do I need to abstain?
You could, but you do not have to.
But for quorum's sake,
For quorum's sake, you should.
okay, I'll say aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. With that said, and I wish you the best of luck on that reappointment.
Thank you.
With that being said, before moving on to item 5, still in regarding this topic, I do reflect on my own time, and like I said, better part of 13 years in this commission and serving with the city, and I guess before I make my decision, I wanted to put it out there to the current commission to make sure that, again, my opinion is still warranted and my time is still spent well here, and that everyone still agrees that, again, I would be a good fit. So again, I would like to continue to serve, but again, I would also like to do so at the behest of my fellow cohorts who are here and not here. So before I throw my hat in the ring, I guess I would be curious of everyone's opinion to make sure that it is still warranted for my time up here.
Well,
Any on this end?
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Again, I
and,
just wanted to put it out there because, again, I don't want to.
yeah, absolutely. Again, you're just a totally different voice than all the rest of us, and ask great questions, and have been a good leader for us.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Well, then with that said, I would throw my hat back in the ring for reappointment if it sounds like that may be the recommendation, but I cannot make that motion.
So do we,
If a commissioner would like to make a motion tonight to also recommend Chair Belfany for reappointment, you certainly can. Otherwise, we will put it on the next available agenda for consideration.
I'll make a motion to recommend Commissioner Belfany's reappointment to the Planning Commission.
I'll second that?
Thank you both for that. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 The ayes have it. Again, I thank you all for the confidence.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. All right, with that, moving on to more pressing items. We have a number of public hearings tonight on 4 items under item 5. Again, I would, as always, I do want to put out there to those who are here to speak tonight, we do have a sign-in sheet. Make sure you do speak clearly into the microphone with your name and address, and also remember to keep all comments, questions, and opinions in relation to the individual items that are before us and within the scope of that. Personal biases aside, of course, as always, as we do know these are always contentious issues when things come up for public hearing. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a public hearing. So we do hear what you have to say. We do want to respond and make sure that you are advised as to what is going on in these things, but we do ask for good decorum and good manners as well. And if there is back forth further discussion that you may or may not need to have, please do so out of the chambers, as to not continue to interrupt the meeting, because we have a number of items and we don't want to carry this meeting later than it needs to be. So I thank you all ahead of time for that consideration. With that being said, let's move on to item 5A, the variance request and legal non-conforming expansion of 1311 229th Avenue Northeast. I'm not going to butcher the name here. I'll just put Terrace, and I thank you for that. So, Aaron?
All right, thanks again, Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Commission. This item is to consider a variance request to allow for a building expansion of a legal, non-conforming business here in the city of East Bethel. In 2012, B&T Trucking, an over-the-road truck company that has been in business for over 20 years, purchased 1311 229th Avenue Northeast and relocated a truck motor freight terminal to the city. The property is located in a light industrial district, and according to city code, truck and motor freight terminals are prohibited. As a truck motor freight terminal is not permitted in any zone of the city, in 2021, B&T Trucking was required by the city to obtain an interim use permit, as they were a legal non-conforming use, to ensure compliance and continued use within the city. The property owners recently approached the city inquiring about building an additional 50 by 60 storage building on the property. There is an existing slab with a foundation immediately west of their existing building on the property. Although an IUP 2021-28 was granted on May 10th of 2021, the use of the property remains a legal nonconformity. Expansions of legal nonconforming uses have been approved by previous city councils, albeit under differing permissions, such as existing conditional use permits or previously approved plats prior to the zoning change. According to Section 5 of nonconformities, it is the intent of this section to regulate such nonconforming situations to accomplish the following: recognize the existing uses and structures which were lawful when established but no longer meet the needs of an ordinance requirement. Discourage the enlargement, expansion, intensification, or extension of any nonconforming use of structure, or discourage any increase in the impact of a nonconforming use or structure on the adjacent properties. Encourage the elimination of nonconforming uses and structures or reduce their impact on adjacent properties. According to Section 5-2A, a non-conforming use may be continued, including through repair, replacement, restoration, maintenance, or improvement, but not expansion. Sometimes landowners seek a variance to allow the use of their property that is not permissible under the existing zoning ordinance. Such variances are often called use variances as opposed to area variances from dimensional standards. Use variances are not generally allowed in the state of Minnesota. However, variances can be granted to allow permission for under the ordinance for the zoning district where a property may be located. According to Minnesota statutes 462.357, appeals and adjustments, the Board of Appeals or Adjustments, or the governing body, as the case may be, may permit a variance for any use not allowed under the zoning ordinance for property in a zone where the affected person's land is located. Excuse me. At the September 11th, 2023 City Council meeting, the potential expansion was proposed or presented to the City Council, who gave a positive informal recommendation for staff to work with the property owner to seek formal approval. The variance findings of fact: the property owner proposes to continue the legal non-conforming use of this property. The existing use of the property is considered a reasonable use and is allowed by city code as a legal non-conforming use due to the IUP. B&T Trucking would like to expand the structure so they can continue to operate the business efficiently by storing commercial vehicles on site. The plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner. B&T Trucking has been operating a business from this property in a light industrial zone since 2012. On September 21st of 2016, the City Council of East Bethel adopted regulations prohibiting truck and motor freight terminals. This business can only be expanded with the approval of a variance. The variance will not alter the essential character of the locality. The business has been at this property since 2012. The existing structure and commercial vehicles have been a mainstay of the business. The presence of a commercial vehicle and the expansion of the building will not alter the character of what already exists on this property. Staff is requesting the Planning Commission hold a public hearing, review the prepared resolution, and make a recommendation of approval or denial to the City Council for a use variance to allow for the expansion of the property at 1311 229th Avenue Northeast with the conditions identified in the attached resolution.
Question. Aaron, has the city received any complaints or issues with their business as it stands now?
So in the research prior to that and leading up to the requirement of an IUP from Resolution 2021-28, it indicated in all of that staff information that the city has never received a complaint of any violations about this business.
Thank you.
And in my time here, I've not received a complaint about this business.
Thanks.
All right. Because this is a public hearing at this time, I will go ahead and open the public hearing to speak regarding the variance request. Anyone wishing to speak, please state your name and address and speak clearly into the microphone. Not seeing anyone rushing to the microphone, I will go ahead and close the public hearing at this time. I will open the floor to discussion or a motion for discussion on said item. And then accepting any motions regarding recommendations of approval or denial for City Council.
In order to discuss, do we need a motion to discuss?
Formally, lately, we've been having a motion to
We never
discuss.
used to do that, but now it seems like that's a thing. So I'll make a motion to discuss this topic.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to discuss. We are discussing. All right. Anybody like to go first? Glenn, you look like you're halfway ready.
Yeah. To me, 50 by 60 for this site and purpose does not seem like a big deal in terms of any kind of impact we should be concerned about. It's not for the purpose, seemingly, of expanding the business so much as to protect vehicles or to keep them out of sight. In either case, that's a benefit to the city rather than any concern that I perceive.
Thank you, Glenn. Any other opinions?
I have nothing negative to say at all.
I don't have anything negative to say either. I guess the only hang up I have again is, just following along with the, according to the section 05-2A, the non-conforming use may be continued through repair, replacement, restoration, maintenance, or improvement, but not including expansion. I guess for me, that's the one area that I just want to make sure we're doing our due diligence to make sure we're not circumventing that area. Aaron, am I wrong in that piece of it, or help me with some clarity,
Yeah,
please?
so that is the exact reason that I brought this informally to the city council ahead of time, understanding that ultimately the city council can approve a variance for the expansion of a non-conforming use. Their indication was that they would be supportive of the expansion of a non-conforming use, therefore we move forward with the variance use application process. I can point out on the screen, you can see just to the left of the building at the bottom of the screen, there's a little kind of a bullpen area that's got a concrete wall. That's the extent of the addition that he's putting on the property, that small square
Okay.
with the tractors and stuff in it right now. That will be that's the proposed site of the newest part of the building.
Yes. So
This property is heavily fenced, and if you didn't see the sign out front that said B&T Trucking, you may have no idea that it's even a trucking terminal. And this variance and the potential expansion does not have anything to do with the conditions originally identified in the IUP back in 2021. Those conditions still will be required to be met. So this is not going to afford them the opportunity to bring more trucks onto the property. It's set at a certain number, and that's all that they're allowed.
And I guess that's where I was starting to lead my question to again, to come full circle with the point on it is that, again, this expansion seems to be to building only, not expansion of said business, so therefore it is a property improvement, not an expansion of, you know, if they were an auto parts store and now they have that much more room for more auto parts, they could generate more sales. This is not an expansion from that aspect.
One
Is
could
the
interpret-
version I'm looking at it.
One could interpret the word expansion in many ways.
Correct, which is why I thank you for the clarification. So I don't see an opposition as well. I would be open to a motion if there was one to be had.
I will make a motion to approve resolution 2023-72 for staff recommendation.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. This will go before city council on the, nope, I don't have a date here. November?
Yes, the first meeting in November.
First meeting in November. Oops, excuse me. That, we are moving on to item 5B, the Strandland Farm preliminary plat at 2836 221st Avenue Northeast.
Thank you, members of the Planning Commission and Mr. Chair. The Strandland Farms, Carrington Homes LLC, as you know, we have looked at the concept plan a month or so ago, and this is the next phase of moving on to development is the preliminary plat. We have received a complete application from Carrington Homes LLC and all of its requirements. The plat in front of you consists of 20 buildable single-family rural residential lots on 73.90 acres. Of the proposed lots, one meets the mandatory minimum of 2 acres. The rest of the lots are larger than that, and the average size lot is proposed at 3.27 acres. Therefore, all lots will meet city minimum requirements. The subdivision will be accessed off of Luan Drive, which is also Anoka County Highway 74, by the creation of a new section of 219th Avenue Northeast. The section of 219th Avenue Northeast will be required to be constructed to minimum city design standards. As it is County Highway 74, the Anoka County Highway Department was sent the preliminary plat for a review and comment, which was received back on October 19th. Any and all comments, as indicated in the letter attached in your packet, will be required to be satisfactorily addressed prior to the submission and filing of a final plat. The Public Works Department for the City of East Bethel reviewed the submitted preliminary plat and are in support of the subdivision as proposed, with the recommendations of removal of the gravel cul-de-sac at 219th and make the full connection to the platted road. The city engineer has been sent the preliminary plat. However, comments have not been received back from the city engineer. However, all comments from the city engineer will need to be satisfactorily addressed prior to the filing of any final plat. The East Bethel Building Department doesn't have any comment at this point. There are no building code items to look at. The Parks Commission reviewed the initial concept plan at the August 8th, 2023 meeting and made a recommendation of park fees in lieu of land, with the possible exception of providing a trail easement from the cul-de-sac to 221st Avenue Northeast. Easy for me to say. At the updated preliminary plat will be reviewed again at the November 14th Parks Commission meeting. The park dedication fee is determined by 10% of the fair market value of undeveloped land, not to exceed $2,000 per lot. Staff will work with the developer and property owner to determine the amount required for park dedication fees, which will need to be paid prior to the release of the final plat with signatures for filing. Attached is a resolution 2023-72, which is a staff recommendation of approval of the preliminary plat for Strandland Farm.
Great, thank you, Aaron. We need a black piece. Thank you. All right, with that, I will go ahead and, again, this is a public hearing. I will open the public hearing at this time. Anyone wishing to speak directly in this manner, please come to the podium. State your name and address for the record, and again, let's make sure we keep everything in respect to what we're discussing tonight.
Hello, my name is Jacqueline Shies. I live at 2760 219th Avenue Northeast. The new plat formation that was submitted by Mr. Strannon is more acceptable than the first. But I do have some questions that pertain a lot to my property because of the cul-de-sac. So, Steve, can you please describe in more detail, Mr. Stranlin, could you please describe in more detail the minimum design standards for that cul-de-sac? It's stated in...
And I would say we'll wait till the end of the public hearing to have the developer respond
Okay, for
directly,
any
if
of
that-
these?
Yes, I would say let's get them out and we can have them addressed as opposed to having back and forth.
Okay, so I will sit down and we'll see if anyone else has any comments.
Okay, is
Because
that-
I have more questions about, well, quite a few things.
Okay, I would say let's
Okay.
get those questions out now. We can get them down and then we can try to address them as we go
All
along.
right, so go ahead and mention them, okay.
Yep, let's get them out.
All right,
We'll write them down and
so
address
during the public works, and I wasn't quite sure if this was also, the departments have reviewed and submitted a preliminary plat and are in support of subdivision as proposed with the recommendation of the gravel cul-de-sac on 219th Avenue and to make a full connection to the platted road. My description question would be on block 1, lot 1, sorry. There isn't really, I don't think anyone really quite understands how much water in the spring is there and that a big portion of lot 1 doesn't exist. Neither does the cul-de-sac. We can canoe in it. So I just want to know, when they describe about how they're gonna bring it up or level it, from 219th and Zumbrota, it's a downhill glide. And so all the properties are a hillside and they all drain onto 219th down to the cul-de-sac. And so my husband, Michael, each year puts a drainage trough on each side of the road to drain off and drain off onto our property and off onto the other side of the cul-de-sac. And it does end up being a ton of water. So just, I don't know if they have that in their minds that that's what it's really like.
So really, what's your question then?
Well, how is the grading gonna really be? I mean, it's gonna have to really,
Will the grading be addressed to assess the cul-de-sac? Oh, one at a time.
I'm
Oh,
Michael Childs.
yeah, if you'd like to also come up then with her real quick.
Yeah, just for quick.
Yep.
I think the big issue is just
Oh,
that.
we'll need
this
you to
whole-
speak into the microphone, I'm sorry.
That whole area is low. The city had brought it up a little bit before, but we've actually canoed in that area. All the runoff from the field comes down into there, along down the road, and I physically have to put in channels to minimize it from standing water.
Right.
So that's the one issue, but the other issue is I just paved my driveway. Somehow it's gonna have to get tied in. I'm not sure where the pavement's gonna end. It'd be nice to end a little past my driveway, but I don't know if, city's gonna spend extra money for
right.
that.
But just so that you know that the wetland markers that were done this spring in a drought is not gonna really be accurate on a normal year. Then the building department, as far as the septic systems for all the different lots and the wells, where they are gonna be located, and will they be affecting each other's water wells or whatever with the septic system?
That I can quickly address. There is ordinances as far as spacing and location and that, as to make sure that they're not impeding on one another.
Okay, then another question, because of all the years of farming, we've been there for 43 years, and of course, Mr. Vern Strandlin was farming every year and putting pesticides down for weed control. So I'm just wanting to know if there have been soil samplings and water samplings to see if anything is in contamination. And then I wasn't quite sure about the park dedication. Is there going to actually be dedication for a park or?
Nope, that's where it was indicating in here that, it was the park commission's recommendation that it was a fee charged in lieu of a park.
The possibility. Or
So,
that it,
the way they're indicating it is that, the city is not interested in having an additional park at this time there, so they would rather take the fees to support the other parks we have in the city.
all right. That is the end of my questions.
Great. We'll be sure
Thank
to
you.
address
Thank
them.
you.
And I do have one more little thing.
Again, please state the name
Can I
just so
go-
we know.
Michael Chise, that's our property, Jackie's property, 2760 219th Avenue. We've lived here, we appreciate it, we appreciate the wildlife. We've appreciated Vern through the years, and I have no issue, development's gonna happen. I'm just trying to minimize the impact, because it's been such a nice view for me for many years. There'll be some houses and things that, and any change, I appreciate not having a cul-de-sac right across from the house. I guess I'm just wondering and hoping that maybe you can add a little berm along that line closer to my house as you guys are doing some work up in there. Now, it wouldn't have to be big, but maybe just a little buffer that the trees and stuff, would give me a little more privacy. Because it's a big impact for me. You guys maybe say pull out your violin, but all I can do is express myself, so.
Nope, and that's what the
That's what I
public
would-
hearing is there for,
Thank
that's why we
you.
wanna hear the comments, so thank you. Anyone else wish to come up and speak regarding? Alright. Steve, would you be so kind as to address some of the questions that may be something you might only be able to answer in some of this?
Can you put the grading plan page up there, Aaron, or not? You don't
If
have to
we
get
get
in there.
I don't, let me,
Yeah,
Just
we'll
put
scratch
the
'em.
other one back.
Thank you, I
Okay.
appreciate the assistance.
There.
it may be in there, I am
Well,
not
yeah,
sure.
this is the, this has the, it's enough.
I just can't make it all on one page.
Yeah.
It gets too small if I try to make it all for one page.
Right, it doesn't show the, I just need this part here, but,
You want the cul-de-sac, the temporary cul-de-sac, the gravel?
yeah,
For the record, I'll just reiterate, Steve, just for the microphone recording sake.
yeah, well, I got to point at the screen and I can't.
Yep,
go.
trying to assist.
Okay.
Here and there, the pond, there's a berm here. There's a pond here, piped across, there's a pond here, there's another pond here. That any water from the farm side is contained on the farm side. And piped across the road, through the next pond, over to this hatched line, which is a swale, bringing it to the large wetland down in the middle. So there's no water running off, but also really not solving the other, it's not our job to solve the other half, but it is our job to not.
Impede on it.
Yep.
Okay, so to reiterate then, it is, your due diligence has been done to make sure any water mitigation from the lots that you have in this specific concern along the
Right,
west border would be mitigated
right.
toward the east and south
Yep,
from from this development.
and probably less than when it was when it was farmed, because when it was farmed, there was not that system in there bringing it back over here. It just went there because that's where the wetland pocket was
Yep.
forever.
And
Now, it's gonna be, from the farm side, it's gonna be directed
so
out
not,
of there.
and not to put a beholden on you, but one could look at that statement then as this may improve the wetness of the soil at that area, as it's not to be saturated on the neighboring property as it would be draining away.
Right, if there was water running there before, it's not gonna now.
Yeah.
And, there's probably some that's gonna be taken out of that cul-de-sac, where
To continue
into
the road.
ditch system on the south side.
Okay.
And as far as the wetland delineation and such, this spring was one of the wettest, highest water table springs in many years.
Yeah, if I remember right, there was record snowfall.
Yeah, and so the,
Okay, so here's the other one.
that was not the case, but What was the?
She had a question on your design standards on the homes, is that
No.
correct?
Oh, no,
Or-
it was
Or,
on
I'm
the
sorry, on the
road.
cul-de-sac, on the road.
Well, that's-
Yeah, but the cul-de-sac isn't, the cul-de-sac's going away, so we're not building the
I
cul-de-sac.
guess,
I'm just trying, cul-de-sac and road levels, how is this all gonna tie together? Because it seems to be such an
Our
extreme.
street will be, will come down onto, will meet the gravel grade of the center line of the cul-de-sac.
And therefore, the cul-de-sac would then be eliminated as it would no longer be a cul-de-sac as it is as a road. But I think what you're looking for is to know that the grading would go from the current elevation down to the existing cul-de-sac elevation.
does the city have any plans to do any work on that? You're gonna get rid of the circle, you know, people come down and park and everything there, and there'll be a straight road in. But that, the elevation there is still really pretty low.
And-
And you will, you ask any of the city guys, because I go down there routinely and smooth out that road.
No,
So
and-
wet.
I
Yep.
wanna make another comment too, if you'll let me after.
Public hearing is still open, so when he's done, we'll circle back. But what I'd want to avoid though is a ton of back and forth, as well as this back and forth that's not recorded. So just to quickly reiterate,
Right.
you're asking if the roads or Public Works Department has any intentions on upgrading that area of the road. This body cannot answer that question at this time. I would just venture to say that if there is an issue like any, please report it, and we will address. I believe our Public Works does a pretty good job of addressing things as they arise if necessary, and I would think we do our due diligence.
If you'd
to-
like, I can answer the question.
Oh, please, Aaron.
Our city engineer is not gonna allow the developer to not do the work in the existing right-of-way to match the proposed coming in right-of-way. So Mr. Strandland's gonna be required to do some work over there on that side to make those two work together.
There's probably about a 50-foot, 100-foot,
Yep.
maybe at the
We-
most, transition zone there in between there.
Yep.
And I'm
And
sure
it-
it's gonna get leveled out and smoothed out,
Yeah.
but some of
So,
it's gonna be.
and as Aaron just pointed out, the engineer is gonna make sure that it is done to an applicable road as to not impede, so.
That isn't much of a cul-de-sac there now, as you can see, it fits within the 66-foot
Yes.
right-of-way. So,
Mhm.
it's not much.
Yep,
Right.
yeah, well, and again, it's temporary as it
Yeah.
originally said, so. Let's see here. There was a question asked about soil sampling due to farming.
No.
No, okay. Well,
And then these were both from Michael Chives.
Right, it won't
He
be.
was asking about he just paid.
Oh,
There's no reason to, there's no, if it was an issue, the issue was when he was farming, and
I guess
not
it's a
anymore.
residual. I
Yep.
just got
yep,
the-
sir, we gotta avoid some of the back and forth. If you guys wanna have a follow-up conversation, totally understandable. But for posterity and for the meeting's sake, we'll keep it going with that. The resident did also ask about the driveway. Can you state how far the tarring or what the city engineer would require? Is it directly just to the end of that, or as there seems to be a gap from where your property ends, and to complete the cul-de-sac, I would assume there'd be some tarring past there,
My pavement.
or pavement.
The pavement is proposed to go to the property line, and the connection to the gravel be made with gravel
Gravel.
like the road is currently.
Okay,
Can let you know preliminarily if the wings of the gravel cul-de-sac are removed, Mr. Chives' driveway is not gonna be left short of the cul-de-sac at any point with a ditch or anything like that. The developer's gonna be required to continue and complete the driveway to the existing road, area or the edge of the road. It won't be left undone.
okay.
And then
Let's see here.
he was asking if
Oh, is there a possibility with the grading of being able to use some of the excess dirt to create a berm that may help impede?
Kinda hard, cause it's on the top of a hill already,
Oh, sure.
his house sits on a hill,
It
so.
was the best spot as I looked at it all.
Yeah, I can see that.
I'm sure it's been enjoyable for as long as we could. Okay, I think that addresses all the questions that was had. Any further
Okay.
statements? So that, it sounds like she might have one other question, so I'll ask her to come up
Okay.
and that should be the end of it. Ma'am, did you have one more question with that? Or did it get answered?
Well,
If you do, I'll ask you to come up since you mentioned you did. Otherwise, we'll continue to move on.
just my other issue. What, do you want me to restate my name and
No,
everything?
you're okay.
So my other question is that when the city does plow, they do not come down 219th. They do Zumbrota and they turn, just so when all this water comes down, and it's still gonna come down now, how do they come in there and, when they decide to grate, to
And-
get down there and straighten her out?
And again, I would say that'd be a question for the Public Works, Aaron, unless you have something for it. But again, I would, again, from at least my personal dealings, you know, our city Public Works has always been pretty applicable when and if needed.
Who do I
I
talk
would
to?
just express any concerns if there is any at the time, once they have it put together.
Our
Would I-
public works manager's name is Nate Ashford.
Yes. Yes, and he's very responsive.
Yeah, very responsive.
Okay,
So,
awesome. Thank you for all of your help.
absolutely, absolutely. All right. With that, unless anybody else has anything else, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time. The public hearing is now closed. I'll just jump right into it then, and motion for discussion on agenda item 5B.
Second?
Has a motion and a second. All in favor of discussion? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. All right. We are open for discussion.
So my question is, who's paying for the creation of the new section of 219th Avenue Northeast?
It's the developer's responsibility.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
On the letter from the Transportation Department, it mentions 4 new access points on County Road 74, and I don't see where all 4 of them.
Yeah, let me get that part of the map up here for you. So one of them is gonna be the 219th,
Right.
where it comes onto Luan. There's 2 driveways or 2 access points here, back to back,
Oh,
and then a 4th one down here at the bottom of the subdivision. So there's your 4 total.
I didn't realize that was a double driveway.
Yeah, a lot of lines right there. And without a zoomed in PDF, it makes it even harder. Sherry, any comments?
They've done a lot of work on this, it's good.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I mean, again, Steve, not to give you a big head, I commend you for the changes that you have here based on the
Yeah.
feedback at the last meeting, and I know at that time you had indicated the difficulties that it would be to do this, so from my standpoint, I can appreciate the effort that you put in to try to be amenable as much as possible.
I wanted to say the same. I mean, he's taking financial loss, but he's made this much more agreeable, I think, to the neighborhood.
Yep. And I'll just put it out there too. I know I've said this before, and we've talked about this with other developments, you know, again, and I can appreciate and respect everyone's spot where they currently are, and again, please remember that in this and on other developments too, once upon a time, all of our properties were farm and woods and swamp and et cetera, you know, and we all appreciate being here, and I just hope everyone is welcoming to any new neighbors as they come in and as we develop in certain areas, and try to do it in a respectful and concise manner. So, thank you to all those listening and in attendance, and again.
Well, and the other thing that I've talked to some neighbors of Jackie and Mike said couldn't be here tonight, not all of those homes are going to be built at one time. You know, so it's not gonna be like a flood all of a sudden coming in with cars and traffic but still, it's nice that you've been able to work together.
We're already expecting it, you know,
Yep.
I own the Manamel property land down there, which is all leased up, so I'd be kind of hypocrite. So that could be, too picky.
Yeah, and again, I also don't ever want any of these public hearings to be a discouragement for anyone to come up and
Right.
speak, just because, again, it might not always go the way we would all hope. Again, really, opinions, questions, all in the effort of understanding and expressing your position is always welcome. We just ask it's in a professional manner, and if there's things that go beyond the scope of what we're discussing or what's currently going on, we ask you do it outside of chambers and in other proper settings. So, again, everyone did a great job tonight, so thank you all for that. Any other discussion items on this or areas of concern? Aaron, anything from staff?
I
or-
just point out that in my staff report, I have 3 references of the wrong subdivision name. That is my cut and paste error. However, the resolution in front of you is 100% accurate. So,
Thank you for that clarification.
Yep.
At this time, I would entertain a motion for approval or denial to city council on said resolution as read in front of us.
I'll make a motion that the city council, or I'll make a motion that we recommend that the city council consider approval of resolution 2023-72, approval of the preliminary plat
For the Strandland Farm.
for the start. Exactly.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. This will go before city council also on the first meeting,
that is
In-
correct.
November. So, thank you again, Steve. And everyone else. All right, with that, we will move on to item 5C, a public hearing for Classic Commercial Park, 5th edition, the preliminary plat of 189th Avenue Northeast and Buchanan Street Northeast, CD Properties North LLC.
1 second to get things adjusted here.
Yeah, take your time, I just get it out there.
I'm gonna go to the previous slide because that's
For those leaving, thank you all for coming tonight.
All right, thanks again. The Classic Commercial Park 5th Edition preliminary plat is in front of you tonight, as well as the final plat. Planning Commission is being asked to review and hold a public hearing for the preliminary plat known as Classic Commercial Park 5th Edition. The development consists of 2 commercial lots and an additional outlot. Staff have reviewed the submission and offered the following comments. Commercial site plan review must be reviewed and approved prior to the issuance of any building permits for any of these lots, which would require submittal of plans, but not including but not limited to grading, drainage, architectural, landscaping, lighting, stormwater, and utility plans. Utilities, these lots would be served by municipal sewer and water. All fees associated with municipal services are required to be paid prior to the issuance of any building permits. Park dedication, cash in lieu of land will be collected prior to the issuance of any building permits. Required park fees will reflect the most current fee schedule at the time of building permit issuance. As this was a previously platted outlot in a subdivision, a lot of these development check boxes have already been checked off years ago, and therefore they are just replatting an outlot into 3 separate lots as is the plan. The Planning Commission is asked to review the preliminary plat, hold the public hearing, and make a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the preliminary plat of Classic Commercial Park 5th Edition.
Great. And before I open the public hearing, just for point of reference, item 5C and 5C1 are obviously directly tied to each other. We will have separate public hearings for both. I would be open to opinions, but I think it would be my preference to hold both public hearings and defer discussion and motions on both items to do it together as one. If that's agreeable by the committee, we can hold one public hearing, go into the next, and then move on to discussion.
Sounds good.
Is that
Makes
agreeable?
sense, yes.
Okay, great. At this time, I will start with the public hearing for the preliminary plat. At this time, anyone wishing to speak on that topic, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Don't everyone fight to get there at once. That being said, I'll go ahead and close that public hearing and open another public hearing regarding item 5C1. Aaron, before I open that, do you want to give just a brief description on it before we
Yep.
do so it's stated?
Yep, so the Planning Commission is being asked to review the final plat known as Classic Commercial 5th Edition. The development consists of the exact same 2 commercial lots and an additional platted outlot for future development. The Commission is asked to review the full to the City Council. All of the same conditions defined in the preliminary plat will be a requirement prior to any building permits and/or grading.
Thank you. All right, with that, I would open the public hearing for the final plat of the Classic Commercial Park 5th Edition. Again, seeing no one getting up or coming to the podium, at this time I will go ahead and close the public hearing. And I would entertain a motion for discussion on items 5C and 5C1 together.
Motion to discuss.
Second?
I think Sharon had you by a nanosecond.
Oh, sorry.
All those in favor of the discussion say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. We are open for discussion. I'll look to either bookend to start.
Got nothing?
Yeah, I have no issues. It's,
I as well. I can appreciate those at that time that did the quote-unquote check boxes in previous meetings. I thank them in advance for their concerted efforts to make this easier on us tonight. Not seeing any disagreements or discussions, I would be open to motion for approval if that was the request at this time for both items.
Make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-74, the approval of preliminary plat of Classic Commercial Park 5th Edition.
Do you want to do?
Outlet A.
Do you want to also include the number 75 as well, or do we want to do that in two separate? Aaron, does it make a difference?
Does not
Does
matter
not,
in
thank
this
you.
case.
And I will add to that to, if I could find the,
Here it is.
75, 74, and 75.
oh, okay. To approve resolution number 23-75, resolution for approving the final plat of Classic Commercial Construction
Park 5th edition.
5th Edition, legally described as Sodders Commercial Park 4th Edition Outlet A.
Thank you, Glenn. We have a motion for resolution 2023-74 and 75 as read in the packet. Is there a second?
take it, Sharon.
Okay, I'll second that.
All right, a lot of seconds over here on my left tonight. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it. This will also go to the first meeting in November. Aaron?
It's going to be a big one.
That's what it sounds like. So, lots of work for them.
Lot of coffee
Appreciate
that
their
day.
efforts at that time as well.
Glad we could provide an opportunity for the family reunion tonight as well.
Thanks, guys.
See you on the road, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Keep the dust down. And those also leaving, thank you again for your attendance tonight. It is appreciated. Thank you.
I know that some of those that were here and are just leaving, they come in person because the sound is still so bad that they can't hear on the cable network. So, just for their,
We had a technician in today. I don't know if anything improved or not. I am not sure.
it was pretty bad last night when I tried to listen to the council, so it's better for me to wait and hear it on YouTube, but, yeah, thank you.
Understandable. Thank you for that feedback as well. No pun intended to the sound technician that was here today.
Right.
All right, with that, we'll move on to item 6, a variance request consideration for the frontage reduction of 185XX 3rd Street Northeast. Dave Wills. Aaron?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. As you may recall, in September, you heard a variance request for the to allow for a reduction of lot frontage for 2 driveway accesses for a subdivision or 2 single-family homes to be built in Oak Grove off of 3rd Street Northeast in the Bear Hollow subdivision. The denial recommendation was brought to the city council, who did approve the denial. However, the applicant was informed and made a request that the decision to allow him to reapply for a variance for a lot line reduction for one access was not allowed within a 365-day period unless it was permitted by the city council. This information was relayed to the city council with an immediate request to allow the applicant to resubmit for a variance for a one reduction of a lot line. And the mayor and members of the council wanted to have the planning commission weigh in on the opinion of whether he should be allowed to apply for a variance again within 365 days. So this is not an actual item of a separate variance. This is for you to provide informal opinion to the city council on whether you feel this applicant should be allowed to reapply for a variance with the city for a lot line reduction.
Thank you, Aaron. As there's nothing formal here, I don't believe we need any formal requests for discussion, so we'll just go ahead and open it up for discussion. If anybody feels so inclined to jump in first, they are welcome to.
Is the reapplication for an identical variance request? Because it seems like it's a new variance request. It's a different, physically different than the first one.
My interpretation is whether you're asking for a lot line reduction for two accesses or a lot line reduction for one access, you're still asking for a lot line reduction. So it's the same, he's requesting a variance for the same use or the same thing or the same whatever. It's just, he's not asking for a reconsideration of two. He's asking for a reconsideration of a lot line adjustment or a lot line reduction.
So is there a compelling reason to stray from the procedures that we've had in the past? Or
well, as I stated, it was relayed to the council that the ordinance requires them to make the decision on whether to allow the reapplication. Prior to making their decision, they wanted your input on whether you feel they should allow the applicant to reapply or not, based on all the feedback you heard from the neighborhood.
Got it.
I don't see it. I don't see any compelling reason to allow it.
Yep. Actually, at this point, I'd defer to Councilmember DeRoche. Could you help share opinions from said meeting with that discussion of extra feelings, if you'd be so kind as to share?
Yeah, kind of.
I just, like I said, if it's getting kicked back, and again, I'm happy to weigh in as well, but I would also love to hear maybe a little more in depth of the conversation that was had at that time.
Evening, as was asked at the last meeting when he was going for the variance, it was brought up that he would go in with one and then split off to two automatically. And he asked if he was going to do that, and he didn't really want to make a commitment to it.
Thank you.
Other than that, I mean, from the feedback that I heard, and whatever the other council members do, that's up to them, but it's our job to protect the East Bethel residents, and if it's gonna infringe on them, then no. There is another way to come in from the backside. Is it a little more money? Sure it is, but that's just the way it is.
Yep. Well, and I can very much appreciate the opinion of coming back to planning and zoning for our opinion of it as well. I just wanted to get a little more understanding of where the council was in that. So thank you for that, Bob, and that extra insight of the meeting with the landowner.
Yeah, the ordinance is very clear that section 4 subdivision 10, letter I, under reapplication, no application for a variance for a particular use on a particular parcel shall be resubmitted for a period of 1 year from the date of denial of the previous application unless a decision to reconsider such matter is made by a majority vote of the full council.
Yes, and for me, it's the verbiage or the use of the word use that makes me feel we need to stick to our guns on our ordinance in this case, because one, I think we all know I'm stuck on precedent a lot of times, so for me, if that's the precedent and that's the ordinance, we need to follow that. To me, this is the same as you described earlier, Aaron, use of the variance to reduce lot line. So I would not be in favor of allowing a reapplicant, or the reapplication. That is my opinion.
I agree.
Based on comments, Aaron, I feel you have a unanimous decision of those in attendance that we agree reapplication is not necessary, as our ordinance does prevent that.
Did we hear from Mr. Terry?
Oh,
I apologize, I thought you spoke on that, Glenn,
Well,
my apologies.
I wanted to be clear on the language, which it seems you have cleared up. So.
Thank you for
good with-
checking me on that,
with
Sharon.
what-
And if you want to make a formal motion to bring a recommendation of denial again for the reapplication, we can certainly bring that forward to the council as well. I think they were looking for your opinion, but formal recommendation is also an opinion, so completely up to you how you want to handle it. I can relay whatever version you want.
Again, I'm gonna leave that to the opinions of my cohorts in attendance tonight. Would you guys like it as a formal, or would you okay with just our opinion stated as that's what they asked for?
We're just asking for recommendations.
Yeah, I think
I
our
think we're
opinion's
compli- I
fine.
think we're compliant with what they're
We're
looking
pretty
for.
clear.
If you
Very
could
good.
relay that, Aaron, that would be much appreciated.
Very good, can do.
Thank you so much. With that being said, I believe we can move on to item 7. Bob, if you'd like to come back up and join us for updates and get some extra steps in tonight, so thank you for the help in the first one.
Can I make one note, though?
Yes.
It seems to me this is one point where the planning commission, the city council is all in agreement. So, yay.
Progress.
I heard that. Not too much going on last night. We did have a public hearing on the malt liquor license for Quick Trip. That was granted. Potentially dangerous dog issue, if they're watching, that was put on hold until the next meeting. When is that hearing? The victim in that case wasn't gonna be in town.
Will be November
So
13th.
we can't very well have a hearing if they're not here to testify. Capstone traffic study was agreed on. I think it's S2 or S5. Is the name of the company?
Yes, S2, I believe.
Okay, so that's gonna go ahead. There were some questions on it because we didn't want some fly-by-night study done. With the Elvage project is going to come in, who knows, but it'll be here. We had to have what impact that might have on the Capstone and all the traffic, because even though we're bringing in more homes, it's gonna cost us more to have them there. Tobacco license for Quick Trip, should be open here pretty soon, isn't it?
I think the signage I saw said November 6th was
Alright.
their day of opening.
The 9th.
9th?
Yeah,
Okay, well, upside down and backwards, there's my
Was that
Lickstex,
the
yeah.
9th?
Yeah, I heard the 9.
Yep, the 9th.
Thank you.
Reserve capacity loan payment schedule approval, we tabled that so Mike Jazerski can be here to kind of explain how all that works. I mean, I'm not gonna even try.
Leave it to the experts.
But, there is a good chance of saving money in the long run, and that's kind of what we should do. Other than that, pretty quiet. Keep your stuff locked up, you listen around and there's been an awful lot of people with their garage door openers, they leave them in their car. And somebody breaks in, they get the garage door opener and then they get their insurance card, well, now they know where to go. So I would recommend you don't do that. Even my own family does it, and things happen.
Well, if you're gonna bring up my industry-related things in the insurance world, majority of vehicles now have pre-programmed buttons for your garage door openers, so again, same thing there. Yes, please avoid leaving that in there as an opportunity, no different than a purse in a back seat that just opens an invitation. You're better off leaving your doors open looking for honest criminals.
I mean, I realize it weighs a lot to carry it with you, but, that's all I got. Anybody got any questions? We're kinda on hold here for the capstone, wait and see what the traffic study does. It'll be interesting. And we really did want your opinion on this driveway access.
Oh, absolutely.
We have our opinions, but
Yeah. Well, I'll speak for myself here, Bob, and I think, as you know, like anything, when these things come up, we want to be able to weigh in when we're asked. Again, as an advisory council, we want to give where it's needed, and like I said, I only ask you up just to make sure I get a little better context of what you guys were at, because I wasn't at said meeting, so it gives me a little more insight with the applicant.
Well, then ask you, you're the planning commission, say why'd you allow it? Right? So-
I think you all know I'm the first one to mention the word precedent up here, so. With that said, thank you, Councilmember DeRoche. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
Thank you both.
Yeah.
Motion second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 8:05.
Nice meeting.